All right, so we're going deep today, folks, like seriously deep. We're going to be talking about how we see the world, how we even understand what reality is, and maybe, just maybe, how we created ourselves. Are you ready for this?
I am so ready. Always up for a good mind-bending session. So, where are we starting this deep dive?
Well, we've been looking into this philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche. Kind of intense guy, really challenged the way people think, And he's got this famous idea. He said, there are no facts, only interpretation. What do you think about that?
Oh, man, that's a real firecracker of a statement, isn't it? I think it tends to, well, it either intrigues people or just makes them want to argue. But I think we should probably unpack it a bit before we jump to conclusions.
Yeah, it's easy to just hear that and be like, wait, so nothing is real.
Right, exactly. Sounds like he's saying nothing is real, but I'm pretty sure that's not what he meant.
Yeah, that's what I thought too at first. It's easy to get caught up in that shock value, But the source we've been looking at, it's this YouTube video by The Rational Mirror. It breaks it down in a way that actually kind of makes sense. It's not like there's literally no physical world out there, right?
Yeah, definitely not. What he's getting at is that even if there's like a concrete reality out there, like the real deal, we never actually experience it directly. Everything we know is filtered through our senses and our experiences and our beliefs, even the culture we grew up in. It's like, I don't know, it's like we're always looking through tinted glasses, and we kind of forget the glasses are even there.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah. So it's not so much about denying that reality exists. It's more about saying that, well, we each have a unique perspective on it. Like you and I could be looking at the same tree, but because of our different experiences, like with nature or art, or even just our mood that day, we could end up seeing it in a totally different way.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. It's like how people interpret art, right? Like one person might look at an abstract painting and see all this beauty and meaning in it, while someone else might just see, I don't know, a bunch of random shapes. And neither one of them is wrong. They're just, seeing it through different lenses.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But if there's no one right way to see things, what happens to all the big ideas we usually base our lives on? Like morality, religion, even the idea of scientific truth. Does Nietzsche just throw all that out the window?
Well, he definitely shook things up, that's for sure. And that's where his pretty famous God is dead declaration comes in. But even that, the video points out that it's often misunderstood.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering about that one. He didn't mean that literally, did he?
Not at all. It's more about how modern society, at least in his view, was kind of moving away from traditional sources of, absolute truth. So instead of having religion or old hierarchies telling you what's right and wrong, people were having to figure things out for themselves more and more.
So it's less about atheism and more about the shift in how we find meaning and values then. But I mean, wouldn't that leave people feeling kind of lost? If there's no ultimate authority, how do you even know what to believe in or how to live your life?
That's the challenge Nietzsche throws at us for sure. And he wouldn't try to sugarcoat it or anything. He saw this loss of fixed truths as both, terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it's easy to feel, adrift without those anchors, but liberating because it means you get to choose what you believe in, what matters to you.
Okay, so it's not just doing whatever you want with zero consequences.
Definitely not. But it does bring us to one of Nietzsche's most, intriguing and honestly often misunderstood ideas. Yeah. The Übermensch. And I think that's where things start to get really interesting.
Okay, bring on the Übermensch. I've heard the word, but to be honest, I'm not totally sure what it means. It gets translated as overman or even Superman, which kind of sounds intimidating, to be honest.
I know, right? It makes you think of capes and superpowers. Yeah. But the video is very clear that, that's not what Nietzsche was talking about. The Übermensch isn't a literal superhuman, it's more of an ideal, a way of being that he thought humans could strive for.
So what does this ideal Übermensch actually do? What makes them different from, us regular folks?
Well, remember how we were just talking about how society was shifting away from those old fixed values? Yeah. Well, the Übermensch, according to Nietzsche anyway, they embrace this whole shift, fully embrace it. They don't just blindly accept what they've been told. They question everything. They define their own values, their own purpose, even if it goes against the grain.
So you're saying the Übermensch is basically a rebel, someone who just says, forget the rules.
Well, there's definitely I guess you could say an element of rebellion there, but it's not about mindless chaos or anything. Yeah. It's a very, very deliberate choice, a conscious choice to really take ownership of your life. The Übermensch isn't content to just follow the crowd or live according to someone else's, script. They forge their own path.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects to that whole creating your own reality idea. But honestly, it all feels kind of abstract still. Like, how does someone actually do that? What would that even look like, everyday life?
That is a fantastic question. And honestly, it's one that I think Nietzsche would have loved. He wouldn't give you a step-by-step guide. He'd want you to figure it out. But he did have some ideas about where to start. And it all kind of begins with breaking free from what he called the herd mentality.
The herd mentality. You mean like just going along with whatever everyone else is doing?
Exactly. Like going with the flow. Nietzsche saw that as, I don't know, like a recipe for just kind of, sleepwalking through life, basically.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, you're not really thinking for yourself. You're just reacting to like the pressures and expectations of everyone else.
I can definitely relate to that. It's so easy to get caught up in what other people think, what they expect of you. But how do you break free from that? Like, it takes a lot of courage to go against the grain.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And that's where Nietzsche's concept of the will to power comes in. And no, it's not about, dominating other people or becoming some kind of dictator or anything like that. It's an internal force, more like a drive for growth and self-expression.
So like an inner strength that helps you overcome challenge and achieve your goals. But how does that tie into creating your own reality?
Think of it like this. If you're really going to break free from that herd mentality, if you're going to, define your own values and create a life that's actually authentic to you, it's going to take effort, right? You're going to face resistance, setbacks, maybe even doubt from yourself and other people. The will to power, that's the fuel that keeps you going.
Okay, so we've got this will to power that's driving us, and we're, starting to question those herd mentality assumptions and all that. But I got to be honest, this whole idea of like creating my own reality, it still feels kind of, I don't know, magical. Am I supposed to be out here like manifesting my dream life just by thinking about it?
Yeah, I can see how you get that impression. That's where a lot of people kind of get tripped up, I think. It's easy to like misinterpret these ideas as some kind of, like cosmic ordering system or something. But Nietzsche was really all about action. It's not about wishful thinking. It's about, making choices, putting in the work.
So less about controlling like external circumstances and more about mastering yourself then.
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions with those values you're defining, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Even when it feels like, swimming upstream.
Yeah, because let's be real, creating a reality you actually want to live in, that's not always going to be like sunshine and rainbows.
Now, if it's a reality worth having, it might mean, making tough decisions, letting go of things that are comfortable, but they don't really serve you anymore. It could even mean like facing fears you've been avoiding.
You're making it sound like this whole creating your own reality thing. It's less about achieving some like perfect state and more about a constant process of change and growth.
That is a very insightful way to put it. Yeah, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And like any journey, there are going to be bumps in the road, detours, maybe even times when you feel completely lost. But it's in navigating those, those challenges that you really discover, who you are and what you're actually capable of.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
But for someone who's feeling stuck right now, maybe they're unhappy in their job, their relationships, whatever, where do they even start? Like, how do you go from feeling trapped to actually taking control of your life?
Well, going back to those notes you mentioned you had from our listener, it sounds like they're feeling a lack of purpose.
You're right.
Maybe going through the motions, but not feeling truly fulfilled. Nietzsche might say, this is a sign that they're living someone else's life, not their own.
Oh, wow, that's so true. So how do they, shift that? How do they tap into their own will to power to break free from that feeling of being stuck?
Nietzsche, he wouldn't give you a 5-step plan or anything. He'd want you to really wrestle with these questions yourself. But one thing he really emphasized was the importance of self-knowledge, like really examining your beliefs, your values, and asking, are these actually mine? Or are they something I've just kind of inherited from my family, my culture, society in general?
That's huge. It's like taking inventory of your mental furniture. You might find some pieces you absolutely love, but also some that are just like cluttering up your space and they don't even reflect your style anymore.
Exactly. And once you start, clearing out that mental clutter, you create space for something new. That's where the creation part comes in. It's not about like denying your past or anything. It's about choosing what you want to carry forward, what you want to build upon.
Okay, I'm following you. But what if someone's done all that introspection and they're still feeling lost? Like they know what they don't want, but they're not sure what they do want. How do you go from, I don't know, a blank slate to actually creating a life that feels meaningful?
That blank slate, it can be pretty terrifying, but it's also, it's full of possibility.
Yeah.
And this is where Nietzsche's emphasis on action comes in again. He wouldn't say just like sit around and meditate on your purpose until it, hits you like a lightning bolt or anything. He'd probably say, get out there and experiment, try new things, push your boundaries, see what sparks your interest, what makes you feel truly alive.
So it's less about having like a perfectly mapped out plan and more about being willing to, I don't know, explore, take risks, even to fail sometimes and learn from those experiences.
Exactly. Each experience, even the ones that don't go as planned, they give you valuable data. It helps you refine your understanding of yourself, what you're good at, what you truly value. And that in itself is a form of creating your reality, shaping it through action and reflection.
I like that. It kind of takes the pressure off, like you don't have to have all the answers up front. It turns the whole process into an adventure. But let's be real, not everyone is comfortable with, that level of uncertainty. Some people really crave stability, that sense of security. Does Nietzsche's philosophy have anything to offer them?
Absolutely. Remember, the will to power, it's not just about, grand ambitions and shaking up the status quo. It can also be about cultivating inner strength and resilience. Even if your, external circumstances feel limiting, you always have the power to choose how you respond to them.
So even if you're in like a job you don't love or a relationship that's not fulfilling, you can still find ways to exercise your will to power within those constraints.
Exactly. It might be, focusing on mastering a particular skill within your job, even if it's not your dream career. Or it might be like finding creative outlets outside of work that bring you joy and help you recharge.
Okay, that's really helpful. It brings this whole creating your own reality thing down to a much more, manageable level. But I'm curious, you mentioned earlier that our listener is feeling this lack of purpose. Does Nietzsche have anything to say about like finding your purpose? Is that even something he believed in?
That's interesting because Nietzsche didn't really offer like a neat definition of purpose in the way we often think about it. He wasn't about following some preordained path or fulfilling some cosmic destiny or anything like that.
So how did he think about meaning and purpose in life?
For Nietzsche, meaning wasn't something you find, it was something you create. It's about, actively engaging with the world, expressing yourself, overcoming challenges, constantly striving to become, a more complete, more realized version of yourself.
So instead of asking, like, what's my purpose, maybe the question is more like, what kind of life do I want? What values do I embody? What kind of impact do I want to have on the world?
That's a fantastic way to frame it. Those questions, they don't have easy answers. You might not figure it out overnight. But the process of, wrestling with them, of experimenting and trying new things, of pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, that's where the real magic happens.
I can see how that could be both exhilarating and kind of terrifying at the same time. But it's a challenge that, it feels worth taking on. But there's another side to this that we haven't really touched on yet. What about the impact our actions have on other people? Does creating our own reality mean we get to just like disregard the needs and feelings of those around us?
That is a very important question. And it's one that Nietzsche himself, grappled with. He was very critical of those who used power for, like, selfish or destructive end. In fact, he saw true strength and greatness in those who were able to harness their will to power for the benefit of others, not just themselves.
So it's not about becoming some kind of like isolated, ego-driven individual.
Definitely not. For Nietzsche, true self-realization involved recognizing, our interconnectedness with others. He believed that we could only achieve our full potential within a community by contributing to something larger than ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like we're all part of this, giant tapestry or something. And each of us has a unique thread to contribute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the more we embrace our own individuality, the more we can contribute to the richness and diversity of the whole.
Man, we've been on quite a journey with Nietzsche today, haven't we? From like questioning the very nature of reality to, trying to wrap our heads around this whole will to power thing. It's been a lot to unpack.
We really have. I'm curious, you've been digging into all this. What stood out to you the most? Like what's really resonated with you or maybe even challenged your own view of things?
Honestly, it's that shift in perspective that Nietzsche offers. It's like instead of feeling like I'm just, at the mercy of circumstance, there's this sense of, agency. I actually have more control over shaping my own life than I realized.
Yeah, that's really at the heart of it, isn't it? He's not giving you easy answers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's more like a way of approaching life that's more, more active, more conscious.
Right. And it's not about becoming some like lone wolf either. We talked about how interconnected we all are, how our actions have ripple effects and all that. It's like creating your own reality. It's not just about, personal fulfillment. It's also about contributing to something bigger, right?
Absolutely. There's I guess you could say, a responsibility that comes with that kind of freedom. Nietzsche was very aware of that. It makes me think about something you mentioned in our listeners' notes, about how they're involved in that community project, the one that's facing some challenges.
Oh, yeah, right. They're trying to start a community garden, but they're running into some roadblocks with like funding and getting people on board and stuff. They're feeling a little discouraged. Do you think any of Nietzsche's ideas could I don't know, could offer any insights there.
I think so. Remember how we talked about the will to power, not just being about, personal goals, but also about overcoming obstacles and bringing a vision to life? Well, that community garden could be seen as like a microcosm of creating a new reality.
Okay. So instead of getting bogged down by the difficulties, they could try to tap into that will to power to kind of push through those challenges.
Exactly. And maybe even use those challenges as like opportunities for growth. What if instead of seeing the lack of funding as a dead end, they saw it as a chance to get creative, to find new solutions, to build stronger community connections in the process.
I love that reframing. It's like those obstacles actually become part of the creative process itself. It's not about denying that they're difficult. It's about finding a way to work with them.
And remember how Nietzsche talked about questioning assumption. Maybe there are some assumptions about how community projects, should work that are actually limiting them. What if they challenged those assumptions and found a new, more innovative way to approach the whole thing?
Now you're making me want to get involved in this community garden. But seriously, I can see how these ideas could be applied not just to like big life choices, but also to everyday challenges and projects.
That's the beauty of it. Nietzsche's philosophy, it's not just some, abstract theory. It's a way of thinking that can really inform how we approach everything, from our relationships to our work to even, the way we see our place in the world.
Speaking of our place in the world, there's one more big Nietzschean idea that I think is worth circling back to. This whole idea of like truth being subjective, that there are no facts, only interpretations. I know we touched on it earlier, but I gotta be honest, it's still kind of messing with my head.
I totally get it. It's one of those ideas that can feel, a little unsettling at first. But if we go back to that tree analogy, remember, you and I seeing the same tree differently. It's not that the tree itself doesn't exist. It's that our understanding of it, the meaning we give it, that's shaped by our own unique perspective.
So it's not about denying that there's like an objective reality out there. It's acknowledging that we all experience it through these different filters. Okay, but if that's the case, then how do we even have meaningful conversations? Like, how do we decide what's true or false if everyone has their own, version of reality?
Well, that's where Nietzsche's emphasis on, self-awareness and critical thinking comes in. He wouldn't say, just accept whatever anyone tells you because like all truth is relative. He'd probably say something like, examine those interpretations, question your own bias, look for evidence, engage in dialogue and debate.
So it's about becoming more conscious of those filters we're wearing and being willing to challenge both our own assumptions and the assumptions of others. But isn't that kind of exhausting?
It can be, for sure. But Nietzsche would say that kind of, intellectual rigor, it's essential for anyone who really wants to live a life that's, truly authentic and meaningful. It's about constantly striving to, refine your understanding of the world, knowing that you'll never really fully arrive at some ultimate truth.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see how it all ties together. It's like creating your own reality. It's not about achieving some, perfect state of knowledge or being or whatever. It's an ongoing process of questioning, experimenting, making choices, and sometimes making mistakes and learning from them.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think that's something our listener can really take heart in, facing challenges with that community garden project. That's part of the process. Feeling unsure about what their purpose is. Keep exploring, keep trying new things. It's all part of the journey.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I mean, we've barely scratched the surface of Nietzsche's work, but even this little glimpse has given me so much to think about.
Me too. And I hope it's given our listeners some fresh perspectives and maybe even a little bit of that, Nietzschean fire to go out there and create a reality that's truly their own.
To all you deep divers out there, thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Keep questioning, keep creating, and remember, the power to shape your reality, it lies within you.